met earlier this week, or actually last week, and there's just a lot of really fun things that she was telling me about with the district, and this is a passion of mine, the career and technical education for kids, to give them different options as they go forward in their life. So welcome everybody, and I'll turn it back to Jessica.
Okay, well, thank you all so much for being here. What you'll see in front of you is we are going to be going through a presentation today. We have lots of information to cover. We have some other presenters who are going to be speaking with us just a little bit. And so we're going to go ahead and get started. First and foremost, I'd like to acknowledge the fact that we have several industry partners, and we are just so very thankful for each and every one of them who speaks into the lives of our students, who offers opportunities for our students and helps them to broaden their horizons, if you will. So these are a list of partners. It's quite possible not all of them are here today, but rest assured they are all deeply engaged and deeply interested in what we're doing within our CTE programming. In addition to this list that you can see in front of you is also a group that's joining us today from Cheyenne Mountain High School. They are interested in how we do our advisory meetings, and they're looking to replicate that just a little bit. So welcome to the Cheyenne Mountain High School people who have joined us today. And I'll say they're joining us because of the success that we have with our programs. This advisory committee structure and this meeting that we have twice a year has garnered the attention of neighboring school districts who are now looking to kind of replicate it. And so not only is Cheyenne Mountain kind of on the end of that right now, but we've been really helping District 20 do the same thing. So it's really exciting what we're doing here, and we value you and your perspectives and your insights and your partnerships so very much. So thank you so much for being here. And we're going to dive right in. So part of the conversation today is going to be just a continuation of what we talked about when we met last April. And believe it or not, even though it's only been a couple of months, there are several things that have gone on. And so last April when we spoke, we were talking about a school counselor core grant that we were the recipients of. And actually in the same room as me, who you will hear from in just a moment, are two of our post-secondary counselors. So just as a reminder, this is a grant that we were able to secure to expand our counseling department to bring on post-secondary counselors in each of our secondary coordinated schools. So at the middle school, and then also here at Lewis Palmer High School and Palmer Ridge High School. So we have Angie Dawson with us today. She's from Palmer Ridge High School. And then we have Robin Hudson from Lewis Palmer High School. They're waving to you. It's kind of awkward. None of us are looking at each other. They're right on my sides. But you'll hear from them here in just a little bit. So when we met last April, we had talked about some data that we had collected, and there was quite a lot of data that was brought into the conversation, and that's because it's a requirement actually of the School Counselor Core Grant to conduct data and to really understand and hone in on exactly on what it is that we're seeking to do. So we spoke a little bit about a needs assessment and an environmental scan, and when we spoke and met last April, we were still in the midst of really disaggregating that data and analyzing what it was telling us. So we did proceed through a SWOT analysis, a root cause analysis, and we developed some program goals. So what you'll see on the screen in front of you now are the goals. We seek to, with this Counselor Core Grant and through our post-secondary counseling, we seek to reinvigorate the ICAP process. So ICAP is one of the educational acronyms that stands for Individual Career and Academic Planning. And prior to this, we've always done it. We've done quite a good job from 9th through 12th grade. Well, we now have expanded that down into 7th grade, and we're using a new tool called U-Science, which I'll talk about here in just a minute. We also seek to enhance our pathway option expansion and awareness. What our data told us was that there is a desired need for more information in different kinds of settings. So people are particularly interested in learning more about the military and the trades. And then last, we're seeking to increase our post-secondary promotional events. So hosting career fairs, college visits, CTE showcases. So with this work in hand, we've been marching in this direction. And again, these goals were determined based off of the data that we had collected. And we've already been kind of busy. So we're going to talk just a little bit about that. The first goal that you see is the individual career and academic planning. So this is a process that we engage in, and with all of our students, we've previously done it in high school level, like I mentioned, and now we're also doing it down at the middle school level, where we're really helping students kind of proceed along a trajectory of awareness building and intentionality around what they want to do when they're finished with high school. And so you'll kind of see that trajectory here. 7th and 8th grade, they are just, again, doing some discovery about themselves and then also connecting to maybe some pathways that might fit their interests. And then it gets a little bit more in depth as they get into the high school years. What you'll see on the right is just an illustration, and that's there really to remind me to talk about our primary ICAP tool right now, which is called U Science. And that really stands for the science of you. It's an interesting product and one that we actually analyzed quite thoroughly in comparison with several other products. And we selected it because it's unique in the sense that it not only asks students what their interests are, which is what we found every other platform really asked them, but in addition to that, it really extracted their aptitudes. So students were asked to proceed through a battery of little micro assessments, little exercises, and at the end, it combines both their interests and their aptitudes into one report that kind of expresses to them where they might continue to explore as far as different pathways. It then goes further and not only tells them that, hey, this might be a fitting pathway for you based off of your interests and aptitudes, but it goes on further to say, here's what the careers are, here's what the salary would be for that, here's any education that might be needed, here are where in the world you might find this career. And so it really gives great information. A little caveat to that, of course, if a student has a report and their aptitudes and interests through this U Science tool suggest something different than what they're interested in, then of course we would support them in deviating from that in whatever way they might need. So this is how we're addressing that first goal of reinvigorating the ICAP. Again, this is happening right now from 7th through 12th grade. And not only does it produce really great results and reports for students, but it also gives us an overview of where the interests and the aptitudes kind of lie within our population to really help us streamline our events that we're going to host. So one of those events, I'm going to jump to the next slide here, is coming up very soon. And I'm going to let Miss Hudson talk about something that we're hosting called a Troops and Trades Showcase. So you'll see that on the left while she's speaking.
All right, hello. Well, great to see all of you. And I'm excited to talk about one of these events coming up. And as Jeff said, this was really something through the needs assessment that we heard from families that they would like more in the area of military and trades events. And so this is the first time that we're doing this event called Troops and Trades Showcase. And we have 5 different post-secondary programs coming on November 9th. The event's from 5 to 6 o'clock. So we kind of intentionally started a little bit small just to make sure for our first year that it goes all right. And at the same time, or right after, I guess, is when the college fair is happening. And so we thought having these events on the same night where families could potentially go to the Troops and Trades Showcase from 5 to 6 and then go on to the college fair from 6 to 7:30. So with the Troops to Trades, we have, and a couple of these post-secondary programs I learned about through Andy Breeze and his partnership with them, and I've gotten a chance to meet the coordinators over the last couple of years, and they've been speaking at LP, but Universal Technical Institute will be coming, and they have programs in automotive and welding. And then WyoTech is coming, and they have automotive, diesel, and collision. And then Springs Aviation, that was one of the career areas where our students in both LP and PR have a lot of interest. And so learning about flight training, getting their pilot's license and what they can be doing now. We have Pima Medical Institute coming for all the health care career programs. And then one group reached out to us, it's Berwick Electric, and they're in Colorado Springs, and they offer apprenticeship programs in the electrical industry. And so we're excited to have them too. So those are the post-secondary programs. And we also invited military reps from all of the branches. We have a couple maybe that can't make it, but they're going to be here and have tables and be able to, students and families can approach them and get information all at one time. So typically we have the military branch visit the high school, but it's usually just like one every couple weeks. And so this way students can really pick up brochures and talk to the military representatives at one time. So the way it's going to work, we're going to have 3 sessions, and they're just short 15-minute sessions where they can families can choose and can go in and see a presentation, pick up flyers, ask questions from these groups. And that's how it's going to work. So we're really excited. It's going to be in the social studies pod. We're offering complimentary burritos for anyone that wants to come, and we have a QR code on our flyer so that they can get a burrito from Arlene's Beans to enjoy while they watch the presentations. So yeah, we're looking forward to it. And I do have flyers. We've been sending them out to families electronically. We have posters around the buildings, and I do have flyers here at LP, and Angie's going to have them at PR so that if you want in your classrooms for the teachers to be able to advertise this event as well, we would appreciate that.
Okay, so that's going to be really exciting for our students, and just kind of our first year at that. Something that's not in its first year is the flyer to the right, and I'm actually going to speak about this one because our post-secondary counselor at the middle school wasn't able to join us today. But this will be the second year that that we offer a CTE showcase over at the middle school. It is intentionally planned to exist on December 7th. And last year, it was a great experience where anyone from the public, our teachers and our students were presenting a variety of materials and exercises that they were familiar with. And our community had the opportunity to walk around and just kind of ask questions and see what they're up to. Funny story, there was a blood pressure exercise that students were leading people through, and they would also give guidance if the blood pressure seemed a little bit high, doing yoga and stretching and maybe getting more sleep or something. It was really wonderful. So that's going to be again this year, but what they're going to do is they're actually expanding it to also maybe even selling some products. So I know over in the skilled trades department over at the middle school with Mr. Sanger and Mr. Lewis, they're actually making some items that might be sold that are holiday-ish, maybe some snowmen or some reindeer or something like that. So that's another event that we're hosting that's coming up really quickly. And we look forward to that and to inviting in our community to kind of see what we're up to over at the middle school at CTE Showcase. So what you can see here is that this addresses that second goal that we talked about, that we extracted from the School Counselor Corps grant, was really to promote programming and kind of get the word out there. So the last thing that we have is something that actually already passed, and some of you in the rooms around these meetings maybe were a part of it, but I'm going to let Ms. Dawson talk a little bit about our first ever career fair that we hosted at Palmer Ridge High School last week. So turning it over to Ms. Dawson.
All right, good morning, everyone. Yes, thank you, Jess. We had over 40 presenters that came to Palmer Ridge High School last Wednesday afternoon. We had roughly between 850 and 900 students. Attendance was really hard to take that day, but we have all the data from the QR codes when they were taking surveys. So, but out of those surveys, we had some really great feedback. We actually had a female carpenter come in and who really just inspired a bunch of our PR ladies. And a lot of the feedback was around like women can be carpenters too. And then there were some really other neat comments around everyone can learn electronics. So Nathan, that was probably, shout out to you, man. I think that was probably your session. And so, and there were so many more comments like that, so that they wanted to dig in and figure out more about these careers and these pathways. And what I loved that we didn't expect from this whole experience is not only did presenters share about their pathways and how they got to that career, but they also instilled life lessons like resiliency, and it's okay to make mistakes and not to be afraid to take a chance. And I think, at least I'll speak for our Palmer Ridge students, that was so good for them to hear, because they are so scared to make a mistake. And when there's industry professionals admitting like, hey, this happens, I think that just really set a lot of students at ease. So I kind of spoke about the female barriers. We had a nurse who happens to be a male, and so we had some male students that that were in those sessions and that really are interested in the career of nursing. So I think that was a really neat outcome. And so I know some of you participated in it. So just thank you so much for giving up your time, effort, and energy. We so appreciate you giving and pouring into the next generation. And Cheyenne Mountain, just a shout out to you and our friend Kim Sandoval. She really laid the foundation well for us to launch off for this like first ever Palooza. So thank you.
Yeah, that partnership runs deep too. So you can see that all of the data that we collected last year in terms of what was needed for the School Counselor Core Grant turned into some goals, and we're responding to those goals. And we have energy around it. We're excited, but they're very deliberate, and we're not going to stop here. So we are just thrilled about the direction that we're heading as far as increasing our staffing at the secondary schools for post-secondary counseling. Additionally, we were collecting data at the same time around Portrait of a Graduate and Portrait of an Educator. And I'm not going to go into all of that because I spoke so much at length about it the last time we met. But this was a collaborative, created document that we had been working on for maybe a total of 18 months, where we were interviewing all of our constituents, our students, our parents, our families, our industry partners. You guys were even interviewed. And so we were really asking and trying to hone in on what traits were necessary for our students once they were finished with our high school, and how we can really instill those into our approach with them. And so you all saw, if you were with us last April, that these were the words we arrived at: navigator, contributor, problem solver, connector, and communicator. And then you'll see in that table there just some further definition of that. But what I really wanted to show you was that this graphic is our final graphic, our final rendering. And not only are the words important to us, but this graphic really speaks to us in the sense that it is a topographical map in the background of Monument. You'll see Monument Lake there. The mountain is the mountain shape and the silhouette of Mount Herman, which is prominent in our area. You'll see the Palmer Lake Star on that mountain. And then you'll also see some different colorful paths kind of weaving themselves around Mount Herman. And those the colors in those paths are actually colors of our coordinated schools within our district. And it's also meant to depict just the various journeys that students can take. So this is the final rendition of a Portrait of a Graduate. And then you'll see on the screen in front of you now is the Portrait of an Educator. So again, the words did not change since I showed this back in April, but what did is just kind of honing in on the image of it and then making it consistent so that they're consistent with each other. These are now living and breathing in our schools. We are constantly looking at these and finding ways that they have implications in our practices, whether it be our hiring practices, our evaluative practices, our grading practices, just our everyday conversations that we have with kids. And we perceive that this is going to continue in a very exciting direction. So thank you for your contributions to this. And I'm just reporting out that this is now launched into its next rendition, which we're really excited about. Also, as you may remember, these are the programmings that we have here. So around our schools right now, there are going to be conversations about business and marketing with people from Lewis Palmer and Palmer Ridge High School. Biomedical sciences happen both at the middle school and Lewis Palmer High School. Construction, skilled trades happens at all three. And then digital media communications also happens at all three. Engineering and IT currently is just at the high school level. What we're really excited about is those courses within the high school level have the opportunity to participate and demonstrate their learning through industry certifications. And so in each program, in each pathway displayed on the screen in front of you now, are the industry certifications that we're planning to give this year. Several of them we've already given in the past, and a couple of them we're expanding into for this upcoming school year. This graph will show you exactly kind of the trajectory of these industry certifications that we've been giving. Fusion 360 is something that happened last year in both high schools, and we're just excited to watch that kind of continue. That is in our STEM and engineering program. We have Adobe Photoshop and InDesign has primarily happened at Lewis Palmer High School, but I know Palmer Ridge is going to be bringing that on into this year. And then PACT Core and Construction Technology happened at both high schools last year, and we look for that to grow as well. In addition to these, we're looking to bring in the small business and entrepreneurship credential into our business programming, and then also Python into our information technology programming. So we will continue to report on this because we do find it's exciting. Not only does it help students demonstrate their learning, but it adds something onto their resume that maybe prepares them for the next journey, whatever that may be, whether it be college, excuse me, or the workforce. Students are ready to then apply those skills and that knowledge into the next level. So we're very excited about that. Another aspect of CTE that we focus very highly on and that we continue to develop and grow, and especially through the partnerships that we have in the rooms here, are something called work-based learning. And so work-based learning, and we've talked about it a little bit in the past, they really take on kind of 3 different forms that we are able to really measure within our programming. So the first one is an industry-sponsored project. And industry-sponsored projects really are connecting with an industry partner and then completing a project with them. So a great example of this would be just a couple of years ago, there is a wonderful lodging facility in Colorado Springs called Kinship Landing. And Mr. Stricker's classroom at the time partnered with Kinship Landing, who, by the way, are LP grads, and they worked on designing the outdoor furniture for that lodging facility. So that would be an example of an industry-sponsored project. The next one is a supervised entrepreneurial experience. And that is really when we, in our classrooms, run small businesses. So examples of that would be MoCo apparel, that some of you in the room might actually be wearing t-shirts and apparel that has been made by MoCo. Another example of that is what we're doing with the greenhouses over here at Lewis Palmer High School. So that is very much a product that customers will approach us to create for them. And then we will give them a quote. They will agree on the quote. We will produce the product and then invoice them and make the transaction happen. So that happens in some of our classrooms. And the last line there is the orange line, and that is the internship line. And so that is where students get to go into places of work and actually take on some of the responsibilities of that pathway and really experience it while on the job site. So these are some of the trajectories that we've had throughout the past couple of years. And this is guiding, these are the internship organizations that we were able to partner with last year. So we did have 25 students complete internships between our fiscal year, so July 1 into June 30. And these were our partners, which we're so very thankful for. Well, one thing that we're really exploring, and you probably, you might remember, we talked about it back in the spring, but you probably noticed on that line graph that I just showed that there was quite a difference in our industry-sponsored project and our entrepreneurship experiences, those trajectories and those lines compared to that of internships. And that really had us thinking about why that might be. And so what you'll see here is something called the Colorado Work-Based Learning Continuum. And this is really produced by the state as far as students in the younger grades proceeding through activities that eventually lead them into relevant work-based learning experiences. And so on the right, we started to really disaggregate and look at some data from our census that kind of told a story that we began really investigating further. And one of them is that 17.6% of the workers in our Tri-Lakes area work from home. There's no surprise there. And the other one is that those who do go to work drive an average of about 33 minutes to work. And so both of these, as you can imagine, as we're thinking about internships and actually sending students into the job places, these become really challenging for us because Monument is a commuter community, right? And so we really started to investigate, and I spoke about it a little bit back in April, how we might be able to approach that and think about that differently to really enhance our students' opportunities. And so we thought about this idea called the D38 Enterprise. And the D38 Enterprise is essentially an idea where students of our school district, so both high schools, they have an opportunity to run a business, very similar to what I mentioned earlier with MoCo apparel, very similar to the greenhouses, in which students are able to produce goods and services for our community and then sell them as we go forward so that they can then turn some revenue into maybe their CTSO or their programming that we have here. I know, because I've had the benefit of working with CTE for so long, that how wonderful it is when CTE programs start to really work together. And so that was kind of the cusp of the idea. And this is what I spoke about just back in April, just a little bit. So you can imagine that if we were to expand our entrepreneurial experiences within our schools and then actually raise it up to a district level, that there's quite a lot of a lot of equipment that's going to be needed to secure that. So our ideas are that we're going to have an apparel shop, and we'll be selling maybe t-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, maybe even socks at some point. That we'll have specialty items that we can create with a 3D printer and a laser engraver and a CNC machine. That we'll have a print shop. We're doing a home build. And then also the last one is thinking about how we can really meet consumer needs, just kind of in all of those areas. So you can imagine that that's very equipment heavy. And back in April when we last spoke, I was talking about a grant that I was in pursuit of called the Innovations in CTE grant, and I'm happy to report that we've received that grant. So on the pie graph on the left, you can see kind of the different spends that we are thinking about and that we had proposed and were accepted to purchase. And then you'll see over on the right just a snapshot of the allocation that we're trying to assign to this project. And so we are moving through this right now. And what we're really thinking is that eventually this is going to serve students in our CTE pathways and a group called special populations. So what you see on the screen now on the left are just two examples of course sequencing that students might go through in any of our pathways. So in orange, you'll see carpentry and the construction pathway. And in red, you'll see our business program. What you see is that the hues of the classes get a little bit darker. And then also kind of towards the bottom, you'll see something called work-based learning construction. That's what WBL is, or capstone. And so students progress through the learning and they get to a place of really having learned quite a lot of information and being ready to apply it. So what we're thinking about is that this D38 enterprise, the folks that will be running this entrepreneurial experience are going to be students who are kind of at the lower levels, or I guess the higher levels of learning in their pathways. In addition to that, we plan to bring into this space special populations. So you'll see the definitions on the right-hand side in that purple square, the students with disabilities, economically disadvantaged, and on it goes. So that's who will eventually be running this space. And you're probably wondering, well, where are these spaces located? Well, currently we have 3 spaces designated towards this. One of them is over by the district administration building. It is formerly known as PLEC. The Palmer Lake Early Childhood Center, and we are converting that into a space where both the digital media and the business entrepreneurial experiences will run. And then we have our construction program over here at Lewis Palmer High School. Our home build, which is run by Dwight Mulberry, is already up and running. I mean, you can see the progress that's being made on that home. It's actually kind of astounding people of the area how quickly they're moving through, and he has maybe a crew of, I don't know, 12 or 18 students or something like that. And they are working really hard and getting a lot done. So that's already in production. And then the last space where this will operate is going to be our IT and STEM pathways are going to be operating out of the space that Monumental Impact and Barebotics operate, which is over in the East Rooms at the old Grace Best Elementary School. So we are spread over 3 locations, and we're working through this timeline right now. So currently, we are working on gathering all of the equipment, all of the materials necessary to make this happen. We are converting some of the spaces to make sure that it is ready to receive that equipment, and I'll talk about that here in just a minute. And we're just working on some initial planning. So I do have a group of interns that I'll talk about that are helping with the business development process. So here's our timeline for 18 months. And I mentioned earlier preparing the space. So we, because this is such a student-run endeavor, we do have students from Palmer Ridge High School, the 4th period class, led by Nate Stricker and Dwight Mulberry, who are over in one of our spaces doing a whole lot of renovation. As you can imagine, and you've probably experienced in your life, what little renovation projects can turn into big ones quite soon. So these students in the construction program are actually experiencing flooring, they're experiencing framing, demolition, which I think they all really enjoy. They're working with some electricians to learn some electrical work, and then also drywall and texturing as well. So they're getting real world applications as they're also helping the future generations of people who are going to run this enterprise. So it's just really kind of a full circle experience that we're providing for these students, and we're very excited about. And then also simultaneously, while those students are preparing the space, I mentioned earlier, I have a group of 5 interns who are working with me to create this business development plan. So I have an accounting intern, I have a marketing intern, And then I have interns for all of the specialty items that we're going to be selling for apparel, construction, the specialty items, and then the print shop. So we are working very closely together to try and create a concise business plan that we hope to have finished by February, and then hope to be in production beginning in March. We are all working, and I mean we, I don't mean just the interns, with mentors. I have connected them with one or more mentors to just really bounce some ideas off of. And then me, myself, I was able to come across a mentor as well through something called SCORE, which is a group of retired business leaders who now volunteer their time to support business endeavors. So that's kind of cool. And then we also plan to go on site visits to visit some places that are already doing some of this so that we can just really design something that's going to fit and hopefully be pretty functional right when we begin. So that's it for the D38 Enterprise. It might become part of your conversations today, but changing just a little bit. Another part of your conversations is that each of our programs that you see on the screen in front of you now are up for renewal this year. So CTE programs are approved for a various amount of time. Sometimes it's 2 years, sometimes it's 4 years. And then they're up for renewal. And for that renewal, we have to work really closely together to first conduct a reflection and really just get real with how we're feeling about the different aspects of our programming, and then set some intentional goals. And so what we're asking today, for those of you who have a renewal, to review some of that reflection piece and just help us to make sure that we are honing in on the right aspects of our programming to set goals around. Those with an asterisk, we're going to have that conversation in the spring. So the business program at Palmer Ridge or Lewis Palmer High School, we'll talk about that in the spring, and then same with digital media over at Palmer Ridge High School. But the other ones that you see on the screen, that's going to be part of your conversation today, hopefully, and you can help inform us about how we might be able to modify or adjust that depending on what your conversations are. And now we're going to move on to celebrations. I promise we're almost done. So we have some great celebrations, some early ones with DECA. DECA is up and running at the very beginning of the year. You'll see on the screen here, we had quite a showing already. We have several first place medals, second place medals, and third place medals. And even in the business management and administration one, we had a clean sweep. So we swept it first and second and third. So we're very proud of our DECA showing so far. And there are additional opportunities. And I'm sure Mr. Hansen will be thankful that I'm mentioning this right now, but we're always looking for judges. So in this group, if anyone is ever willing to be a judge, there are always events, and it really can help you become pretty acclimated with the experience. So there's going to be a Beaver Creek Invitational that's happening on Monday, the 29th. Sunday, the 29th into the 30th. So coming up real soon. And then there's also going to be a invitational, I believe, over at the Doubletree in Colorado Springs on November 15th. I was fortunate to be a judge once for the quick service, and it was quite an experience. Those kids are doing good things. And then we have a celebration. Mr. Vries, I'm not sure if you saw this all over social media, but he was the recipient of the Harbor Freight Award. And so the money that he has been able to secure for this will be turned into opportunities for kids. So we're really thankful for his pursuit of that and for him to have been selected. And our students will be the direct recipients of that work. So congratulations to Mr. Vries. And then I'm at the important dates place. So mentioned already some of the DECA events. The middle school showcase is coming up on December 7th. And then March 1st will be our next spring advisory committee meeting. So that ties it up for me. Ms. Hayes, how did I do? Are there any questions in the room before we turn you loose for your industry-specific conversations?
I think everything was great. I'm just super excited about all of this. One piece I wanted to add that Jessica and I have talked to, I went to where did my video go? There it is. I'm just really hating new computers. All right. So I went to a state chamber conference earlier this year, and all chambers are supportive of alternative pathways other than maybe directly to college. And I learned that some of the chambers are actually doing signing days, similar to signing days for those that are going on to athletics, signing days for those going directly either into the workforce or those going into some sort of a technical program and going into the workforce right after that. So I am still working on getting details, because in the chamber world, we very much love stealing from each other. So I want to look at how someone else is already doing it, and then we might be able to talk with Jessica, and we'll talk about how we might be able to alter it that's best for D38. But I was super excited about that, because I think a lot of these alternative pathways really need to be celebrated and not just done. So that's something we're looking to do and hopefully implement by the end of this year. So that is all I have. I'm super excited about all of this. I've put everything into my calendar so I can stop by. Does anybody else have anything for us, as Jessica said, before you go on to your other meetings? Nope. Jessica, do you have anything else?
I think I'm good. Thank you so much. I know that in this room with the post-secondary counselors and our assistant superintendent, when you were just talking about that signing event, there was a lot of like, oh yeah. So we're excited to partner with you in that regard too, Terry. So thank you so much. Well, if nothing else needs to be asked or said publicly, then you guys are free to just kind of tune out and start talking about what's on your pathway agenda. So thank you so much for being here. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you, Jess.
Thank you.
Jess.
Hey, Jess. Jess, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hey, would you be able to leave the meeting open so Jeanette could hang out with us?
Yes.
If Jeanette wants to stay.
Yeah.
I don't want to keep you on if you're still recovering.
No, that's great.
Yeah.